Oh, hello, and welcome to Adente Rigamotus. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have Tending to the Graveyard. So, Tending to the Graveyard is on creepypasta.wiki, and it's by one Levi Athens. They have checking out their profile. They had a couple of other like creepypastas, so we might delve into their little backlog of or bibliography of creepypastas. But before we get too far ahead, let's do our initial recommendations for Tending to the Graveyard. I'm gonna partially recommend this one.
I'm also partially recommending.
I am also partially recommending.
What the hell's happening? No.
Today.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for it in the story for me, anyway. So, and I'm sure for you guys too.
I just literally rolled it before. I just kept rolling the ones.
I love how I said that. It's like there's a reason for me anyway. I don't know about you guys. I'm sure you guys have like your reasons, but like there's a particular reason for me in the story as to why it wasn't like worth like a full recommendation, or like I wasn't willing to give it a non-recommendation. So
for me, I flipped a coin and it landed on the edge. That's why.
Are you serious? Are you for cereal?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, that.
What kind of cereal? What kind of cereal, gamer?
It's honeycomb mostly.
Wow.
With a mix of Lucky Charms in it and some Crave.
Nice.
It's like a medley of cereals. Although the primary base is Chex, of course.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, because I'm one that follows the Chex Warriors path.
Yeah, well, it's Chex is related to video games, and then Honey Nut Cheerios is golden, so like yellow.
I didn't say Cheerios. I said honeycomb.
Honeycomb. Same principle. Same principle. Honey equals golden equals yellow. Yeah. All right, let's get on to the story.
Okay.
The story is rather short.
Tangent.
yeah. Any minute now, those I'm gonna hear some like slamming at my door as I get tangent police swatted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the story is rather short. I think it only clocks in at like 2.5 pages. But let's dive into the rundown. So Nair, because we never get a actual name for narrator, is a woman who believes in respecting the dead and taking care of and cleaning graveyards. In fact, she's been out at the local graveyard, tidying it up and cleaning it because her father recently was buried there. And it's then when she spots this, what she thinks is a mason jar of old flower water on a couple's gravestone. By the looks of the stone, there's only one of the partners is actually in the ground, though. She takes the jar and dumps it to help clean the spot up, and that night awakens from a strange dream to a dark figure in a suit at the foot of her bed, beckoning her to join him before he vanishes. The next day, she's at the cemetery again, and she sees the figure again, and again beckoning her to join him in the dirt. Being a little bit more specific this time. She also spots a grieving woman in the graveyard, alive, who, upon approach, asks Nair if they've seen a jar anywhere. Nair explains what she did the day before, and the woman gets a bit wide-eyed, though more from the figure appearing behind Nair and vanishing just as Nair goes to like check. The woman, Maria, explains that the ghost is her husband, who was an abusive drunk in life and wanted her to be buried along with him when he died. And she reluctantly agreed to have a plot right next to him in the cemetery and such. His ghost, upon his death, began haunting her and beckoning her to join him. That is until Maria's grandmother showed her a family tradition of spells that could stop the spirit from manifesting. The jar of water with various ingredients and sticks within it was placed on the gravestone, and it worked. It stopped the husband from appearing until Nair cleared it off. Nair apologizes and then invites Maria to her car as the apparition continues to appear periodically. And they go back to Maria's house to perform the ritual again. And with that, they appear to live happily ever after. The husband's ghost gets banished, the jar being replaced on the gravestone, and the story ends with Maria and Nair getting to know each other more, even marrying, or at least preparing to be married by the end of the story.
Actually,
Marrying, really?
I mean, it was there. It was a low-hanging fruit, but I'm like, I'm hungry. Please continue.
Fair. Also, Finn.
Yeah, that's the other reason. I figured you were done.
Yeah. Well, with that, I suppose we'll move on to everyone tolerates the random inquisitions at this point, but I don't have anything. So, Mikey?
Right. I have an it story.
Ooh. And now, an it story with Mikey. The E stands for evil. Take it away.
It's a shame that most people avoid graveyards. It pains me to see an old graveyard fall to neglect. It can be a rather lonely place, but I've become accustomed to that. It was filled with what appeared to be murky rainwater and sticks. It must be sort of grim knowing exactly where you're going to be placed when you die and where you'll spend the rest of eternity. It was the eeriest of sights. It was the feeling of someone sinister approaching, something creepy, something lurking, closer and closer. It was the least I could do after my horrible error. Finn.
Okay.
That was almost quite as succinct.
a little different visual because
Yeah.
as soon as it's like, oh, the graveyard and all that, and then immediately it was filled with rainwater and sticks. So I immediately imagined the graveyard just like hip deep in rainwater.
Oh my god, that would be so
floating
okay.
everywhere. And then like there's some shadowy figure
Yeah.
like in the distance or whatever, which is like her intent or something.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, shadowy intent or something like that.
Yeah.
I've got because of that, I've got a small family graveyard story to tell.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me of this. So my family, most of my family
Can I do
is
the wrap up first.
Oh
before I
yeah, but of course, yeah.
For those unaware, and before Cultists continue, is Mikey does these strings of sentences to highlight all the sentences in a story that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ends, or buts, because there's always better words to use.
Indeed.
Now story time.
So, yeah, listening to that, like that other version of the story where like the graveyard is like covered in torrential rain and like sticks and stuff like that. It kind of reminds me. So my family, a good chunk of my family in Toronto are buried in Mount Pleasant Cemetery, and one of the graves is up on a ridge. Like it's a very hilly. I guess it gets its name Mount Pleasant from the fact that it's like basically on like a bunch of like there's like a bunch of like hills and ridges and like little like dips and like ravines in and out of the cemetery. So we have a newer grave up on the hill, and then the person's like grandparent or like parent down at the bottom of the hill. Well, during a particularly nasty rain like decades ago, we have this story where apparently because of like the rain and like a particularly nasty rain conditions in Toronto at the time, my relative their casket fell through the hill at the top of the the water eroded the edge, like the ridge.
Wow.
Enough that my I can't remember who it is, but my relative's coffin went through and slid down directly on top of his aunt or grandmother. Yeah, and it's a running morbid joke that like, well, he just really wanted to like visit his grandmother.
Yeah, really. Wow.
Yeah. My family has. I'm going to get to it in my actual thoughts. My family has very interesting relations with cemeteries. So, and this being the year where I familiarize with every fucking creepypasta we do.
Everyone, you have to at least try now.
Yeah, I think at this point I need to like 2023 is the year where I like I'm just like the crazy like conspiracy theorist with like strings.
Yeah,
from
totally.
creepypastas to like familial stories and connective tissues of my own life and family's life. But yeah, so
asking your parents some weird shit.
Yeah.
In the coming months. Like, do you have anything to do with this that I can?
Could I maybe mine for a discussion? But yeah, so. Yeah, I just had to bring that up because it just like instantly like as soon as you brought that up, Mikey, and like we were talking about it, it instantly reminded me of that story.
Yeah.
But Gamer, do you have any grammar?
I do.
Okay.
This first one I might be wrong on. I probably am, but whatever. The quote is: I saw hollowed out people made entirely of paper mache. They were dancing in the sickly moonlight in an elegant yet grotesque repose. So, I googled repose, which apparently means to lay down, or like is a term of inactivity, which seems opposite.
Yeah, it seems like
dancing.
It should maybe be in like just pose, not repose.
Unless like the paper mache monsters aren't physically moving, but they're in a pose of dancing.
Oh, maybe.
It might be that. Or an alternate definition of repose is like to be placed somewhere. So maybe it's just saying like they are placed in this position doing a creepy dance that's animated.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't
know.
Yeah,
because with the repose, it kind of like contradicts like what I was visualizing is like animated hollow men or like hollow people of like basically like these like shells that look humanoid but are like paper mache.
Yeah, because it says like they were dancing in the sickly moonlight, which sounds animated. If it meant to be like a static pose, it should be like they were posed dancing in the sickly moonlight, an elegant yet grotesque repose.
Yeah.
That might work. I don't know. How'd you see it, Mikey? Were they moving or were they stationary?
Which items are we talking about? Moving.
This is the dream that she had.
Dream hollowed out people made of paper mache.
I viewed them as moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have a problem with the word repose, or did you just read over it and continue?
I probably just read over it and continued.
Fair. I was gonna do that, but I'm like, nah.
there's not a lot in the story. There's not enough of the story that we just kind of need to like we need to mine what we can.
Also, it's like I hate reading over a word and being like, I assume that's fine. You know, it's like I enjoy learning words and knowing if they're supposed to be used one way or another. You know,
that's fair.
And then my next one is pretty much at the end. Since meeting Maria, I haven't been spending much time alone in the graveyard, although make sure to visit my father's headstone often. I think he would be pleased to know that I have decided to marry. Maria looks wonderful in her gown. So, is Nair writing all this down during the wedding party? Because that's current tense.
I kind of assume so, honestly. Like, I kind of assume like she's like,
or
maybe not like. Well, hang on, because like, I mean, it is I think it is bad luck to see the bride in the gown before the wedding, but I think that's during at the time of the ceremony. Like, so they might be like prepping for the wedding, but they haven't actually like done the ceremony. Like, they're not at the ceremony yet, because like I think the husband is allowed to see the bridesmaid, like the bride in or like the partner is allowed to see the bride in the dress when they're looking for it, or like when they're deciding on it. I'm not 100% on my marital customs,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's only really like when you're at the church and like, or like you're at the ceremony site, that the spouse is, or the partner to be is not allowed to see the bride in her gown.
Yeah, because
Like,
previously they're talking about that they've decided to marry, that not that they have been married.
yeah, so like they're deciding, they're working, like they're basically going through it, and maybe like at the Nair is writing this down at the time, like during like that time, like where they're like basically in the preparation stages.
Okay, maybe it should be
So-
like Maria will look wonderful in her gown.
Yeah, that could be a little bit more
That's a safe
clarifying.
way to do it. Yeah.
Again, otherwise you have assholes like us, yeah, picking at little things like this.
Well, it kind of pulled me out right at the end because I'm like, if they were doing the tradition of you're not supposed to see the bride at all in her gown until you're actually there at the wedding, it made me immediately think that they got wed. They during the after party, like she's just sitting down at a table writing down her memoirs.
Writing it down, yeah.
Yeah. Which
Or maybe
seemed
it's
odd
like
to
a
me.
couple of days after. It's like, man, she looked really good, or she looks really good. Yeah, no, yeah, it's present tense. So yeah,
Yeah.
fair. I took it. I kind of like hand waved it and just, I was actually kind of being lenient with this one, and just kind of took it that it's like, it's probably like premarital like timeline when this is there. So like they're prepping for the marriage, but they're not like they haven't been married, or they're not at the wedding yet. So
Yeah. But either way, that's the end of my grammar.
okay. Then I suppose we'll move on to actual thoughts. I'm going to start with the actually beginning. I think Mikey brought it up in his story, but I'll bring it up again. It's a shame that most people avoid graveyards. The dead deserve to be visited every once in a while. You'll spend more time there than you will spend living anyhow. It pains me to see an old graveyard fall into neglect. So, remember that story I just told about, like, my family being having a bunch of bodies in the cemetery in Toronto?
Yep.
Cut to another story in a completely separate location in Canada, where a bunch of my other family currently reside and rest. Cut to 2017, Newfoundland. We were vacationing there, and the whole lot of us, like extended family included, and we decided, like as part of the trip, they just the elders of the family decided to go and find the grave site, or like the cemetery where our original ancestors that moved to Canada were buried. Like basically like our technically my great grandparents. So we went to a place called Cupid's, and in Newfoundland, where the cemetery was supposed to be, and like my parents had found the site prior to going on this trip. And we get there and we have to walk into like brush and a little bit of wilderness, because the entire cemetery had fallen to neglect for almost 100 years.
Oh, really?
So we were walking through these like this kind of like small patch of like wilderness with like, there's young pine trees, or young cedars, and some young tree saplings and stuff like that growing, and it's like heavily like tall grass and stuff like that, but you can see the outlines of the iron rock gate that goes around the perimeter, and even around some of the cemetery stones.
I'm gonna let you finish. That's wrought iron.
Yeah, sorry, wrought iron, yeah. And you can even see some of these like decayed cemetery stones, like gravestones, like all around and whatnot. And so we went and found like my great grandmother's like grave. And we were taking pictures like with the family, like just to kind of like commemorate that we'd found it, and we were like trying to brush it off and get rid of it. And that's when the ants attacked us in force.
Oh God.
Apparently, this neglected location had become a haven for ants. And as we'd been trampling all over their ant hills, which were now in the graves, they retaliated, and we kind of had to get the fuck out of there after we took
Then
some
it
photos.
became Indiana Jones with like the fire ants.
Yeah.
Or whatever they were.
Yeah.
Who got
So yeah,
consumed by them.
so again, reading the start of the story, it's like, oh yeah, this reminds, like they do fall into neglect. It is really shameful because like I had that experience where we went to to an ancestral graveyard in Newfoundland that had fallen to neglect. Like all around this particular plot of land is now like new development and like not subdivision, but like basically like people are building houses like nearby in like little neighborhoods. But nothing is getting done to this thing. So like I think my folks have like asked a couple of people like they know in Newfoundland to kind of clean up the area around our particular ancestors. But yeah. Again, another story or another part of a story that I was like kind of connected to from my own personal experiences.
That's interesting.
Yes.
I'm surprised you could pull so much like, specific knowledge like this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's just like, again, the year of the cork board.
Yeah.
Much like it's the year of the Vossen, but I'll get back to that in a bit. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to continue with this next quote. One day, when tending to the graveyard, I found a single mason jar laying atop a grave. It was filled with what appeared to be murky rainwater and sticks. Assuming that it was an old flower vase that had been left out in the rain, I poured out the contents. I'd soon learn the mistake I'd made. First off, title drop. One day when tending to the graveyard. Credits.
I did not read it like that.
But secondly, this is actually a pretty reasonable response to something like for someone to do. Like even if it does trigger a curse or some kind of supernatural element because you messed with the wrong object, like yeah, a person cleaning up or tending to a graveyard is going to assume that a mason jar with mucky water and sticks is probably like a base for a flower thing. And like if it doesn't look like there's any flowers in there, they're going to it makes logical sense to me that they'd take it and dump it. Like just to like kind of to tidy up a little bit.
Because it's unsightly and ghosts aren't a thing.
Exactly. Like in the real world, like people aren't like going to assume that like ghosts are gonna like that object is cursed or it's keeping something at bay. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because too often we see someone do something that they shouldn't logically do in a story that spells their doom. And to read this part, it was kind of refreshing. It's like, oh, this actually makes sense. Unlike all those other times people have just done something, like picked up something or done something that they really shouldn't have. And like us as a reader is like, no, that's clearly not. Why would you pick that up? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So,
There's a lot of Derplanders out there.
Yeah. So this is clearly not in Derpland, is what I'm saying. Next thing here, though. That night, I had a strange dream. It was the eeriest of sights. I saw hollowed out people made entirely of paper mache. They were dancing in the sickly moonlight in an elegant yet grotesque repose. These hollow people twisted and contorted in bizarre motions to the sound of a skipping record player.
Okay, so they are animated.
Yeah. That is almost as creepy as animated marionettes dancing about, like, to me. Like,
same sort of thing, you know?
It's the same sort of thing, but it
to be moving, that is.
Yes, but it also has the added uncanny valley effect because I'm assuming it's paper mache faces too. So like that would also be like if they have faces, like if they're not just like blank blank expressions like marionettes often have, like they're just like a carved like blank spot where the face would be. Like I'm assuming it's like paper mache facsimiles of faces, and like that's also just as creepy because it's like that actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf, like that. I'm picturing like that, like the paper mache Shia LaBeouf masks that the dancers were wearing.
Oh, okay. The hollowed out like dancers, I saw them as like entirely hollow, like from like their entire torso and face is just all hollow.
Oh, it's
there
like
was no
empty.
actual
Like there's
face.
there's nothing there. Yeah,
That's the way I saw it personally.
that's fair. It also kind of reminded me of a certain like enemy or like a minion in a series called Skullduggery Pleasant, where they actually have like the Hollow Men, which are basically like papery, like they're people that are like done like made from like the shells of like this papery material, and then like this like necromantic like gas is like poured into the is poured into the body to fill it out and like make it like animated. But again, just like it's not really in my notes. There's just something I know I kind of noted while I was reading the story. It's like, oh, that kind of reminds me of that. But I will move on to the next thing here. I turned to look, only to see the shadowy figure standing at the east end of the graveyard. I stood to my feet and stared at the dark-suited man in the distance. Softly, the specter spoke. "Won't you join me in the graveyard?" She is in the graveyard with you, technically.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just being silly here, but like that is like she's and then like right after, I think it's like, "Join me in the dirt," and it's like, oh, okay, like you want her in the graveyard, like in the grave.
Yeah, I was gonna ask him to clarify,
Clarify,
and he
and then he did.
absolutely clarified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the next thing I have here, the spell worked until I came along. Now his spirit was back amongst the graveyard. He had mistaken me for her the first time around, but having seen her, he wasn't going to leave her alone again. Hearing this, I apologized profusely once more and immediately escorted her out of the cemetery towards my vehicle. From beyond the gates, we could see the dark specter standing stoically. The figure lifted his hand, beckoning to her. I offered her a ride to her place, which she thankfully obliged. We went back to her house, and she showed me the ingredients for the spell. So, aside from the repeated appearances and beckonings of the dead husband, there's no real threat here, it seems. Like, sure, having your former husband appearing as a phantasm and calling to you might drive you depressively mad, but it also could just be like annoying and even just easily ignored.
He's asking nicely.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and the fact that they are able to easily replace the old spell with a new jar seems to kind of dampen the story's like horror. Don't get me wrong. I do actually like the ending of the story of like these people actually using magic to like reseal the ghost and stuff. Like, and I'll be honest, like I would totally read more stories with this cute new witch couple. But I feel like the husband should have posed more of a spectral threat. Like, what if his beckoning was like a psychic attack or some kind of magical domination attack where he can control a person or even like partially possess them, and it even runs the risk of causing the woman to kill herself if he persists.
It was also said that the husband sorry. It was also said that the husband was also an asshole.
Yeah,
like
so
in
like
life. Yet
yeah.
as a specter, he's just like, please join me. No, okay, bye. Like
Yeah, like the way
there's no assholishness when he died. Maybe he repented when he died or something. I don't know, but
I think it's more like he was an abusive, like it was an abusive relationship. So like he was like, come on, darling, join me in the dirt. Like I kind of got more of that angle, but like, yeah, this character,
it should be said
this
that
ghost,
there's an aggressive tone then.
Yeah, this ghost definitely need to be more like hostile than what was portrayed.
Yeah.
And damn it, now that I've said all this, I recall the stat block for ghosts in Call of Cthulhu D20.
Of course you do.
Where I could easily run a scenario on the premise of PCs simply removing an innocuous jar off a gravestone and being haunted by the ghost, and the ghost, like in the stat blocks, they have like powers that you can like for like dominating you, to commanding you to do stuff, and other like such like spectral attacks and such. And of course, because this is the year of the Vossen, Vossen would probably also work with this situation as well. So honestly, as the apparition and the encounters are in the story, This is surprisingly mundane and realistic, in that it's like all of those real world accounts of hauntings you see on ghost TV shows, like paranormal, like I don't know, like paranormal stories of Hollywood, or like paranormal celebrity stories or something like that. Like the ones, or like, or Ghost Adventures, or like there's like a handful of like outdoor life channels that host these like ghost shows where you hear about haunting situations that are exactly like this, where they are not threatening at all, except for like this kind of minor emotional or psychological damage that the ghosts are causing by their appearance. But eventually, the families of the haunted houses just kind of like have learned to cope with it. So it's sort of realistic in that it's grounded, and it's kind of realistic in that sense. But because this is a creepypasta, I expect more of a threat level than the person simply like manifesting as like, come join me, please, 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 won't you join me in the graveyard?
Yeah, he's basically an ad, and she just put up a pop-up blocker, like an ad blocker.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
That's all it is.
That is exactly what happened here. It's those annoying fucking YouTube ads that you have to get an ad blocker for if you have a computer, and you're fucked with if you're watching it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
God, I fucking hate those.
But thankfully for you, there's a thing called like YouTube Red. What is it? YouTube Plus, Premium? What's their premium?
Gamer, we're not sponsored by YouTube.
That's why I'm doing a horrible job. I can't even remember what it's called.
You're trying to like advertise us.
I'm doing like an anti-advertisement.
Hey, YouTube,
I can't even remember.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Well, that bit's done. Also, the story's like almost too short for its own good. Like in that regard, like in the regard of like what we get in the story, like everything gets wrapped up way too quickly. Like there need to be more of a danger to Maria or even Nair here from the ghost. Because it's just like Nair removes the jar, unleashing the ghost, but ghost just like bugs them, like pops up and bugs them like an ad, like you're saying. Yep. And then Nair meets Maria, like a day later, and everything gets explained. They go to Maria's house, resubscribe to their ad blocker,
yeah,
and ad's gone. Like, and they literally all live happily ever after, except for the asshole ghost.
Technically, Nair dumping that thing out was the best thing she could have done, because it made her find her like true love or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was
negative aspects to this.
Like there was a consequence in that. Like as it is right now, yes, there's no consequences. There should have been though. Like there should have been like us. I'm like, you can keep the happy ending and stuff of that. In fact, I encourage that, because like
she didn't even have to fight for it though. It just happened.
Exactly. We need more. Like they just like. It's like, oh man, my evil ghost husband is calling to us from the graveyard. Want to go back to my place and reseal him? It's like, yeah, let's go, and done. And yeah, that was barely an inconvenience. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like that's kind of my big issue with the story, is that like it's resolved before it even becomes an issue.
Yeah, they get right on that.
Yeah.
And granted, if you had the ability to do that, to stamp on a supernatural issue before it becomes a problem, in real life you would do that. You would want to as fast as possible. But in the case of a story, there's less story because of it.
Yeah, well, and that's not even my problem. The problem here is that the ghost needs to up its fucking game.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine with them like having the solution already and like having to get to it. But that ghost needs to fucking like step up and like cause some obstacles before they get to that point.
Yeah, like, because if he is witnessing them making this and all that, because he's a ghost, he can go wherever the fuck he wants. He should be like intervening, trying to stop them from getting back to the grave.
Like, it's like, as it is, like, it's like, join me in the dirt, Maria. And it's like, hey, Maria, you want to go back to your place and do that seal? It's like, what? No, get back here. And then like, it's just like a car chase with a ghost chasing them.
Yep.
Maria. Yeah, that's my big issue with the story is like it's too short for its own good, and the ghost is almost too realistic for its own good in terms of like the kind of like actual like ghost encounters people recount and such. In that it doesn't do anything to the living except for like pester them.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need to up that the cinematic you need to up the action a little bit on the horror level of this. So
And granted, for all we know, that is all that ghosts can do is just annoy the living. Like,
yeah, but then don't put that in a fucking story. Like put it like do something with it. You're a creative you're creatively writing this plot.
yell at me, Jesus
I'm
Christ!
not yelling at you. I'm yelling at like the idea, the thing that you're bringing up. I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, like I'm just like I'm just trying to hammer home. It's like you can like just have this happen, but like this isn't a creepypasta then. It's just it got resolved. It was a happy ending. Like you need to up the horror angle on this to make this like a worthy kind of, or not worthy, but like a more effective creepypasta.
Because yeah,
Or
the
more
story as it
spooky
is, it could be turned into like a Disney movie for all we know.
Exactly. Like honestly, this is very Disneyfied kind of like as it is. Like yeah, like this now I'm just seeing this like this is playing in my head as like a Disney feature.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are Maria and Nair are now just Disney princesses.
Yep.
But yeah, that's my my actual thoughts on the story. So Mikey, these stands for evil.
All right. So, yeah, I'm just gonna agree that there's not enough creepy in this creepypasta.
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely some soggy
and-
noodles.
Yep. Although this is a pretty good public service announcement to don't touch stuff in graveyards.
But still clean it up.
Yeah, clean it up. But if something is intentionally left on a grave, you don't like a mason jar. Somebody obviously put it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know. Do you have anything about the photo that we do get with the story?
There's a photo.
There is a photo.
There's a photo.
Yeah,
I saw that there was a photo.
Well, I'm bringing this up because like it actually touches on what you were just saying. Like, don't like I'm looking at the photo. It's right at the beginning of the story on the wiki, and it's by Levi Athens. So I assume that she actually like they took a photo for the story, like to actually like build like kind of elaborate. And yeah, if I saw that, I would actually, I'm looking at that, it's like I could still see why somebody might think that is like an old flower vase or like what somebody used for flowers.
Yeah.
But at the same
like
time, it also
stems of like flowers that have like wilted and or whatever, and that's just like dirty, shitty water in it. Yeah.
Or even the sticks are there, like they could have been there, like for like tied to the flower to keep it upright.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So it could easily go either way. Like that is either some kind of occult, like voodoo jar, or it's just a flower water, like a flower vase kind of thing. But yeah, so but yeah, like I you can understand why, like if somebody's like tidying this, like, oh, I'll tidy this up because like this doesn't need to be here. But yeah, the moral of the story is don't do that. Like tidy up, but like if you see something like that jar, leave that alone.
Yeah, get rid of stuff like leaves, nature taking over the place.
Yeah, detritus. But
all right. Now, my next actual thought is that we don't actually firmly get a gender for Nair.
No.
Not to the very we don't, but I definitely got the impression of a girl. Yeah,
it's assumed female because the first thing that talks about the father wanting them to have a husband.
Yeah.
But if it could still be a guy because he could be gay and just wanting the father wanting him to have a partner.
Yeah, no, that's true.
My problem is it could go either way.
No, that's fair.
It changes a little bit of the visual, but everything else is the same. But it's just annoying because I would like to know one way or the other for sure which one it is.
Honestly, I think that's on you. Like, I don't really see that big of a problem with it, but
It may have been intentional just so the reader can like self-insert themselves in.
I don't know. I think
or not necessarily self-insert, but basically just make up your own. You could choose the gender of the character because the gender doesn't matter. So whatever.
Yeah.
It's the way it's laid out. It doesn't really make you flip halfway through the story. Think, oh, it's actually this gender or that gender. Like right from the get-go, you get an assumption, and the events of the story doesn't change that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, a little something to confirm, I wouldn't be against.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
Even something as simple as like at the end when they're talking about the wedding gown and stuff, just could be something like we're gonna look awesome in our wedding gowns, like something like that, you know.
Well, I mean, some same-sex
true.
couples
That's
don't
true.
like sometimes the partner will wear like a suit instead of a gown. So yeah, but yeah, like I get what you guys are saying. It's just like it could honestly I could take it or leave it. So
if there was a little bit of dialogue from Maria, then you could slip in a he or a she in there, you know.
sure. Or if we got Nair's name.
Yeah, that would help.
That's honestly that's the biggest thing I'd have in the story is give us a fucking name, people. Jesus Christ.
It'll probably be like Jesse or something, where it's like, oh god damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be something like gender neutral or like.
Yeah, totally.
God damn it.
Not that I have a problem with that.
No, not there's anything wrong with it. It's just like for like the clarity of like getting a proper visual when you're reading a story. I get what you guys are saying on
wanting
this.
clarity, then getting a general neutral name does not help.
Yeah. It's just the same way as like why.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, just like as the story as is, like I see where you guys are coming from. It's like you're trying to like visualize this, and then like you read halfway, and you get annoyed by you have to suddenly like you realize, oh, it's this, it's likely it's actually a girl, not like a guy. Then you have to change your kind of a little bit like you have to tweak your visual, and that does annoy you guys a lot.
I'm saying I did not have to.
Okay, well, I'm talking Mikey in this case.
Yeah.
Now that we throw Mikey under the bus.
Yeah. That's fine. I'm fine sitting under this bus. So that's into my actual thoughts.
Okay. Then Gamer.
Yeah. Let's see what I have left. Oh yeah, so I'm gonna start by saying I don't know how this happens, and I'm gonna continue by saying so before I started reading this story, I was having dinner and watching Forrest Gump. I've never seen Forrest Gump before.
Really?
But like, no, never. I've heard people quote all the time and seen like.
You never saw it in class? Like I'm pretty sure I've watched it like twice in school growing up.
I don't remember that movie at all. I just remember the clips that everyone links.
Okay.
And stuff like that. So I'm like, screw it, I'm putting it on. 2.5 hours. Okay, fine, fuck it. I'm putting it on anyways. But that movie has a good bit of focus on life and death.
Yeah.
And like the second last scene is Forrest talking in front of a tombstone, which segued quite well into me immediately starting to read this creepypasta.
It's not just me.
Yeah. Also, I read the entire thing with Nair having
oh no.
Yeah, I did. Because he talks a lot in that movie. So.
That always said laughs like a box of chocolates.
Yeah, it's chocolates.
Yeah, just like replace Mama. Mama always said to Dad.
Yes.
Papa always said, "Life is like a graveyard."
But yeah, and then like 2 paragraphs in, I was feeling like it's actually a pretty accurate voice in a way because like, granted, the character may or may not be a woman, who knows? But like taking the liberty to spend what seems like all of her time to clean a whole cemetery. That seems like a Gump sort of move. You know?
That's very on brand for Gump. Yeah,
Yeah.
for Forrest.
And like saying that they're alone all the time and never having a bleh. I need to find words today. And saying that they're alone all the time and never having relationships really work out. That's also pretty Gumpy.
Yeah. Seeing how every person, every friend that he's ever known, either goes away or dies.
Spoilers, but yeah.
Spoilers for a movie from like the early 90s that you should have seen by now.
I didn't see it until yesterday, dude.
Gamer.
Yeah. But either way, I thought that was kind of interesting how good of a segue that was.
Yeah. I can see
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then in regards to the mason jar on the gravestone and all that, when I read it, so I looked at the picture before I started reading this, but I didn't like look super deep at it, and I didn't really know what was going to come and go of it. But I continued reading through, and I read that the mason jar was open to the air with the sticks sticking out and all that, because that's what the picture shows as well.
Yeah.
But like, why would you not have a lid on it? Because maybe the reason that Marie has to keep coming back is Maria.
It's Maria.
The reason that Maria has to keep coming back and like refreshing it is because it gets filled with shit, like rainwater diluting it and all that. Like, does it have to be open to the air?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because I feel like you should have a cap.
I mean, it could be like, unfortunately, like the way some of these like folkloric remedies and like rituals happen is like you can't like sometimes like they have like these weird like tedious or like just superfluous like things that you have to do, like you can't have a lid on it, or it's like, why? It's like, I don't know, that's just how it's always been.
But at the end, when they made the new one, it specifically says it has a silver lid on it.
Oh, then then maybe I don't know, like maybe they just didn't put it on the first time. I don't know.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't think about it. We're just trying to get it to work.
Yeah. Or maybe that's what it was like in the olden days, but then like now they've actually upgraded the ritual. It's like, yeah, well, I had a silver lid because silver's a purifying agent.
I don't know if it's actually literally silver.
No, but it's a silver lid.
Color.
Yeah.
But yes. That makes more sense to have that on it, because then the rainwater and stuff won't dilute it.
Yeah.
And if the like sticks have to stick out of it, maybe they had to like drill holes to let the sticks come out. So it, like,
yeah, because maybe that's why they had the cloth. Like, because in the photo there is a cloth of the like with the sticks kind of poking through, and you could it's not exactly clear because of the photo if the cloth goes over the top and they're like the sticks are poking through it, or if it's just like wrapped around the lip of the jar. But
from what I can see, it does not go over the top, because at the back, right where you see the knot, you can see the glass of the rim of the mason jar.
Okay.
So I don't think it goes over. Is it just like a headband for it?
Yeah.
God, I'm tempted to Photoshop that red and put an M60 in that mason jar's hands.
God damn it. God damn it.
He's fine. And then my last note is basically kind of brush on it. Any fear-related thing is glossed over and accepted way too quickly, I find.
Yeah.
Like, Nair has a spooky dream, but like as soon as Nair witnesses the stuff in the dream happening in real life, there should be more of a reaction. Like, she said that she's an enjoyer of ghost stories and all that, but that doesn't mean that she sees ghosts literally all the time, unless she's living in a world that's not my own.
Also, was that dream is that dream even like connected to what happens in the story? Like paper mache dancers in like creepy, grotesque moonlight, and then she wakes up to a sound in her house, and then the ghost of a guy who's buried in a funeral suit appears at her at the end of her bed and beckons her to join him before vanishing. Do those two? I feel like the dream might have just been a red herring.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with this, but who
Yeah.
knows?
Unless it's like, because like again, like the author does have other stories, so unless these characters like continue on and with new stories, like Nair continues writing stories about like things that have happened, and maybe this was like a hint or like a foreshadowing to another story.
I mean, maybe, who knows?
It's possible, but like, yeah, as it is, like in this story, like this 2.5-page story, it just like, I don't think that dream had any connection to what's going on.
Yeah, not really. But maybe there's a deeper meaning that we're not getting. Who knows?
Maybe. The deeper meaning is they wanted to make this 2.5 pages long rather than 2 pages long. So
yeah, I'm sure that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the end of my notes.
Okay. Then I suppose we move on to final thoughts. So I like this story, but like a Disney princess, I must have more.
Mm-hmm.
As the ghost encounters are, this isn't even all that scary. Like, though I do think the 2 living characters and the family magic setup is pretty cool. I'll give this story. This is why I'm giving this story a partial recommendation as a result. Because I like the 2 living characters in this. I like the setup and the magic part, like angle at the end. But it's not very scary, and it's too short for its own good. Like, there's not enough here to merit even a full recommendation, because we just don't get enough. So it's like it just didn't it didn't completely live up to its potential. I think for me, like that's the big issue. That's my big like takeaway is like there was something here. Yeah, there was something here, and then it ended.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So yeah, I'll still partially recommend it, but there needs to be a lot more here for a full recommendation. Mikey, D stands for evil.
Yeah, there is some creepiness, but there's not enough. And as we've stated before, like the creepiness doesn't actually seem to affect the people in real life, even though they suddenly see the apparition in real life. But oh yeah, it's just fine. It's just the shadow on the corner of my eye. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like it. There's no, I guess, real sense of dread. Um, even though there is sort of a creepy scene where they wake up with because of a noise, but that could just be something finally falling off of a shelf.
Yeah. Again, an explanation for all those haunting things.
Yeah.
That happen. Yeah. It could even just be the house settling, like
Yeah.
particularly loudly.
Didn't it say like there's a
Mhm.
thunderstorm and that there was just a thunder crack?
Yeah, she goes to bed like to a thunderstorm. I think on the way, or when she wakes up from the nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
So even then, there's a simple explanation, but it's just there's not enough creepiness there.
Yeah.
So uh, I did like that it's a bit of a public service announcement to don't mess with tombstones.
Yes.
but do clean them. Like,
Yes.
respect the dead, but be cautious when you do so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I'm still only a partial recommendation.
No, that's fair. All right, gamer.
Yeah. For me, the story was written well enough that I wasn't stumbling through it. The characters are good, though Nair's obsession, like to clear this entire graveyard, is a bit strange, I guess. I don't know. Depends on how big this graveyard is now that I think about it. If it's a small local graveyard, that's not too much of an undertaking. Or if it's like the graveyard for like a city. It's like
Well, yeah.
huge.
I mean, again, there are like I assumed it was like a small plot, like
Yeah.
because like you see those like all the time too. Like I mean, there's like tons of them around us, like in town and even like on the outs, like in like the out in the countryside kind of thing.
Yeah. My problem
So.
is I was connecting it to the one that I go to most recently, which is the one that is in town,
Yeah, and like
which is quite huge.
and like the story, my stories from earlier, like like there's the historical one that we went to Newfoundland in, but like Mount Pleasant is a fucking it's basically the size of Central Park. It's
Yeah.
like literally it's just this giant swath of land surrounded by old and new housing and buildings in the middle of Toronto. Like it's a big like there's walking paths, like so people can just like people like walk and bike through that cemetery like it's a freaking park.
Yeah.
While paying their respects to the dead. But yeah.
Course.
Or if you're like my mom when she was younger, sunbathing among the crypts.
Were the Bloods there too?
I knew as soon as I said the word, I was like, he's gonna fucking do a gangster pun. Fucking asshole.
Been, proud of
I
me
would
if
have breathed a sigh of relief.
It had to be done though.
Yes.
But yeah, back to the story.
Yep.
My problem with this is kind of a common one as of late, that there isn't as much creep in the story as there should be, as both of you have also said. The first potentially creepy moment is a dream, and it's done in like a very cliche way with like the lightning strike happening that immediately reveals the ghost guy in the suit there, and then immediately disappearing. Like that's done in every movie ever, basically.
But like, and that's a good start. But then it just becomes "Join me," while he's like halfway across the graveyard.
Is he yelling?
So it's like "Join me," or it's just like that kind of like creepy thing where, and honestly, this could have been something that even creepier. Like he says it like "Join me in the dirt," and he's like halfway across that graveyard, but it sounds like he's right at her ear. Like that would have been, if that was described, that would have been really cool. But yeah, the way it sounds like it's like "Join me," and then meanwhile, like she's like looking over to him like off in the distance, like what's he saying?
No, but she's
like,
specifically hearing him, so it's more like you should me. I hope that picked up.
that did. That was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Hey, you should join me. Join me in the dirt.
Yeah, it's a little less. I mean, if it literally is a ghost, it would still be creepy regardless, even if he's yelling at you cartoonily like that. But still, yeah. For me, after the dream and waking up and seeing the guy at the end of her bed and all that, everything after that doesn't really have as much creep, or any creep, honestly.
Yeah.
She, as I said before, she doesn't react to seeing this stuff happening for real, because the first time it happened, she could have been like, "Oh, I'm just waking up from a dream. It's fine." And he wasn't actually there. But when you've been awake for a while and then you see it, she should be rolling sand at that point, you know?
Yeah. That's how I'd run it. Honestly, like I would definitely, I might run a Call of Cthulhu D20 game where you guys, where one of you guys inadvertently like steps, like pushes over a jar or something in a cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys are just being attacked by a ghost as statted in the book.
Yep. Have us all roll stealth to get through somewhere, and then like the lowest person like accidentally knocks the jar over.
Yeah. Tune in to One Less Die at some point in the future where this might get this recording, if this actually happens, might get posted.
Mm-hmm. Like
maybe.
Down the line.
Definitely, maybe.
Yeah. But either way, with all that being said, I do like the concept of what the entity is, as like just wandering spirit wanting his wife to join him in death. Mm-hmm. Although there's no repercussions to it being freed. Like, it upset Maria, sure, but it didn't do or even try to do anything to her. It's just asking nicely, which also betrays the character of who that guy was in life. Because he was a jerk in life, so why wouldn't he be more of a jerk in death too?
Yeah. Like, you could have it like like have it be like polite, appealing, like please join me in the dirt, and then like but have the character describe it's like it sounded like even though it sounded kind of like a polite and nice kind of thing, I could hear this like I could hear like an undertone of like aggression or like
Hey.
I could feel the malice on the words as much as like they that betrayed their polite like sincerity or something like that. Yeah.
All right. Hold on a sec.
Okay.
Okay.
What if Maria is the monster?
You're gonna need to explain that one.
Yeah.
So she's saying that he was a drunkard, but maybe he wasn't.
Okay.
Maybe she
And-
killed him.
I mean, maybe.
Or maybe she's part of the SNTF, the Supernatural Task Force, as it were.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she goes from graveyard to graveyard, placing and updating sealing jars for various pesky spirits. Like Maria's not even her wife, like that guy's wife. It's just like he just like when if that seal wasn't there, he'd just like find like the nearest like woman that like happened to be passing by and start haunting them.
Yeah.
So like she's actually like a witch, like a witch agent for the SNTF.
Mm-hmm. Surprisingly plausible, given our weird headcanon of creating the SNTF.
Very bizarre headcanon.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. It's entirely possible.
Just gonna continue writing some notes.
There's going to be a lot of games.
Yes.
But either way, there should be some repercussions to the events that happened, and there really weren't any. And technically, if you think about it, the events of this story are the best thing that could have ever happened to Maria and Nair. Because it, like...
Yeah, they found each other.
Found each other because of it, you know? Like,
yeah.
Which is very Disney
It's
level.
very Daw. Like...
Yeah. But it's not very creepy.
Yeah, and it like... It's cute, but not creepy. It's kawaii, but not kawaii. that Japanese word that means creepy or cute, depending on how you say it. And I'm pretty sure I butchered it myself.
Oh, I'm sure. We hardly know how to say English words.
Yeah, that's true.
So us trying to say any other words, just no.
Yeah. So I'm just going to like forever apologize as a Canadian and as a person who doesn't know how to really speak.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to any languages.
We are criticizing the grammar of things.
Yeah. Shut up.
Yeah. It's not lost on us, folks. Don't worry.
Yeah, no.
Either way, I'm still going to personally recommend it because the concept of it is good if it was capitalized on with some sort of threat one way or another.
Yeah.
And repercussions.
Okay.
It's just cute. Which is fine if that's what you're looking for, but if you're looking for something creepy, this ain't it.
It really feels like we're just trying to draw this out as much as possible.
Like, you told me to before the recording.
Did I?
Yeah, you totally did.
Okay.
Don't
anyway,
mind
yeah.
All
right. Yeah. Mikey, what are you doing here?
I just rolled it ahead a little bit off him onto you.
Okay. Anyway. So yeah, I guess
Still a partial.
roundhouse partial recommendations to the face. So just like
Yeah, just a light hit. Yeah.
It's just like a light slap to the face like 3 times. Or it's like he's like doing like a roundhouse kick like 3 times, but it's just like as soon as he gets like the foot gets to the face, it's just like it like slows down and just like taps and then goes around again, taps.
Yes.
Yeah. But that'll do it for this week's episode. Finally, I know. Sorry, audience. And if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below, where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. We're all on Twitter. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W at the end because his name is very long, much how we've been doing for this entire show.
A little bit.
And I'm at Review Cultist. If you'd like to help support us financially, you can go to Patreon. Oh, no, hang on. And if you'd like to send us emails, you can go to Patreon. Nope. And if you'd like to And if you'd like to send us emails, you can send them to aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah. And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. Select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tiers with special episodes, early access, extra content. To our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate that. To our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate that. And to the authors of these stories and our listeners, thank you immensely. Because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming into the void. And without your with your authorship, without the stories that you write and post online on the various websites and forums, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to talk about. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the East Towns for Evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis. Sleep well. So, gamer,
Yeah.
it's the show's birthday next week, and
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry.
Why?